What's going on, everybody? And I hope you're enjoying your early Monday afternoon so far. This is NYG Jeffy T85 here, and I'm going to talk about another one of the Brooklyn Nets that was acquired during that trade for Kevin Durant. I spoke about Mikal Bridges a couple of days ago. Now I'm going to talk about the other Brooklyn Net that was acquired in that trade, and that, of course, is the 6'8", 210-pound power forward / small forward, Cameron Johnson. And this is another guy that I was very happy to see the Brooklyn Nets be able to pick up during the trade deadline, because the type of potential production that he could bring this team as well, and the fact that he is also another ascending player for the Nets, only 26 years old as well. In my way, he's the other quote-unquote twin of Mikal Bridges, but he has a lot of good talent on his resume. And I think this guy has the potential to be a good stretch wing for the Brooklyn Nets and a good power forward option over the middle of the court. I really do. I like Cameron Thompson a lot. That's the thing. The thing about him that I really, really like is because of his ability to be able to stretch the field, stretch the court, and be able to be a guy that can eventually hit the three-point shot from behind the arc. He has very good length. He's 6'8". He has a wingspan of about 7'2", 7'3". Long arms, solid defender, can go out there and knock down the three-point shot, decent mid-range shooter. He's just a guy that I really, really, really like as a player. And I think that he could potentially be a guy that could be a future piece on this team going forward. The thing that makes it a little bit more complicating, though, is the fact that after this season, he's a restricted free agent with a qualifying offer at $8,060,534 after this 2022-2023 season. Do I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to extend the qualifying offer? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to accept it? No. Because I think the guy is going to want to go out there and get his money. He's going to be 27 years old going into the offseason. And he's a guy so far that has actually been playing pretty well. He's averaging about 15 points per game this season overall. He's actually played about 27 minutes total between Phoenix and the Nets. In the few games that he's played with the Nets, he's shooting at about 45% from the field. He's making about three-pointers a game right now. He averages about 8 attempts per game so far from the three-point line. I mean, he's a guy that can also, he's shooting it from about, 55% from the field. Guy's a pretty good, consistent shooter out there when he's got the ball in his hands. He's had about a 70% free throw shooter for the Nets, but overall, he's probably around a 75-80% free throw shooter on the season. He's got about 4 rebounds and 2 assists per game. I mean, he averages under a block a game, and he does average about a little over a steal a game. But the one thing I like about Cam Johnson is he is not afraid to shoot the ball behind the arc. He's a very confident three-point shooter. Do I think the percentage has got to go up? For the Nets, he's only shooting 29%, but it's only been 3 games. Whereas with Phoenix, he was shooting 46% from the three-point line in 17 games. The guy, for his length, is a lethal three-point shooter. And he's definitely a guy that I would like to get out there on a more consistent basis for this team. I would. I think Cam Johnson, with his ability to go out there and stretch the court from the three-point line, can be a major asset to this team. I do. Plus, he's got that length. It's the reason why he's starting right now in the starting lineup for the Brooklyn Nets at small forward, when you can argue that he should namely be playing power forward for the Nets. But because you already got Finney Smith, who's also a very good defensive player, the Nets want to put length on the floor. And this is a guy that's 6'8", 210 pounds, that can knock down the three-point shot at over a 40% clip. That's the good thing about it. This guy is also another player much like Mikal Bridges, who's starting to come into his own as an offensive player, and now he really gets to show what he can do with the Brooklyn Nets, whereas when he was with Phoenix, he was mainly a guy that was playing behind DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker, and Chris Paul. So guys like Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges, who were players that were going to be able to show some of their abilities out there, but they were namely secondary top players on that team. Now with the Brooklyn Nets, they can really become top legit players on this team and really show what they can do for this lineup going forward. And Johnson, he's done pretty well. The only thing that he needs to work on, he needs to shoot a little bit more consistently. But like I said, it's 3 games. So I'm not going to get anywhere near worried about this guy. And every year, he's gotten better from the court. Every year, his numbers have gone up. I mean, you could say right now, he's been a little stagnant. He scored about, 14 points per game from last year to this year. But now he's averaging 15 points per game. His rebounding totals have gone up since he went to Brooklyn. His steals have gone up a little bit. He's a guy that's an ascending player right now. An ascending player at 26 years old going into restricted free agency after this season. I do believe that Cam Johnson can be the type of player the Brooklyn Nets can also look to build around after this year. I do. Now, obviously, the question is going to be, how much are you going to be willing to pay him? What is the annual value for Cam Johnson? 27 years old. Have you seen enough? Are you willing to pay this kid the big bucks that he deserves? We'll have to wait and see. Teams are going to look at Cam Johnson and see the value of him this offseason. Like I said, 6'8" wing / power forward. Shoot the 3-point shot at over 40% clip. Solid defender. Great length. 7'1", 7'2" wingspan at the small and power forward position. Can hit the mid-range shot a decent clip. Not afraid to drive to the basket at times. Solid defensive player. Solid rebounder. Not great. For a power forward, his rebounding numbers are underwhelming. But for a small forward, it's not terrible. Playmaking ability on the court. And he's a good shooter. Good field goal percent shooter. 46% for the field is not bad. 43% field goal percentage this year from the 3-point line. Good foul shooter too, around 80%. I think this is a guy that the Brooklyn Nets should continue to try to build with going forward into this season and beyond. I like what Cameron Johnson can bring to the table for this Nets team offensively and defensively. And like I mentioned with Mikal Bridges yesterday, this guy to me is a guy you want to keep on this team going forward because he's an ascending player. He's a player that's only going to get better as he gets older and gets more experience and develops into his own during the prime of his career. I think it would be smart for the Nets to try to lock this kid up after this season to a deal. Depending on how much he wants, though. Because you don't want to overpay for him as well. But I do believe that Cam Johnson can be one of the answers on this team going forward. You just got to see how he performs going into the latter stages of the rest of the season and going into next season. I want to see how he performs if we get into the playoffs too. When we get into the playoffs. That's where I want to see where Cam Johnson's game can really evolve. Is when we get towards the playoffs, how can this kid raise his game to an even higher level? Because I think that he's still an ascending player in the NBA. I know I've said that about 1,000,000 times, but that's just how I feel about this kid. And I think he's definitely a guy that the Nets have got to think long and hard about locking up to a contract after the season. I know you got other priorities you got to think about. Claxton even could be due another raise after this season for the way he's performed. I know you exercised the club option on Cam Thomas. Bless you. Thank you. I know you exercised the option on Cam Thomas. But at the same time, you have to try to invest in future players on this team. And I think Cam Johnson is one of those guys. For a 26-year-old only getting towards the prime of his career. Give this guy the reward that he deserves. And I think in the end, the Brooklyn Nets will end up doing that. But we'll have to wait and see. But you guys let me know in the comment section what you think about Cameron Johnson, his overall play, his potential going into the rest of this 2022-2023 NBA season, eventually getting towards the playoffs, and if you believe he could develop into a very big piece for this Brooklyn Nets team going into the rest of the season and beyond. What you guys think about Cameron Johnson as a player, and what you think his outlook is for the Brooklyn Nets going forward. You guys let me know in the comment section what you think. And you know the drill. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Sub up to NYG Jeffy T85. More news, updates, chatter around the Brooklyn Nets. And turn on that bell for notifications of the next video or short coming on the channel surrounding the Brooklyn Nets. And like I mentioned, let me know in the comment section what you think about Cam Johnson and his future with the Brooklyn Nets going forward. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Monday. Take it easy, and let's go Brooklyn Nets. As always, it's a Nets world, and we're all just living in it.